Hey, Bill. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on WTOP in DC.
Happy to be here. Delighted to see you.
We are talking because there's a special Blu-ray release of Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest. It came out in 1992, so as you can guess, it is the 30th anniversary, hard to believe, of this classic animated movie. Talk about, I guess I want to go into the movie and memories of making it and everything, but start with the Blu-ray release. Have you watched the Blu-ray? And does it look sharp, and is it doing it justice?
Well, I did more than watch the Blu-ray. I did I did the master transfer of the Blu-ray from the original negative with our art director Wendell Luby. I mean, it was actually a great experience. Wendell's been doing color timing for a lot of the big features in town, and he was our guy originally. Him and Ralph Eggleston. So he flew out into LA. We met, and the great thing about Fern Gully, as you probably know, was that it was one of the last non-digital films.
Yeah.
So the artwork, the paintings, and the cells were resolution independent because they were paintings. And then it was shot on film. So the emulsion is resolution independent. So when you take a high resolution 4K, ultra high dynamic range scan of that, it is absolutely amazing. It's like holding the artwork in your hand. And I have to tell you, it has never been better than this version. It knocked our socks off. We loved it. We saw stuff that you almost can't see in the theater because of the quality of the image.
Oh, we encourage everyone to check it out. And like such a great point, like you're saying, it was one of the final ones before digital started coming in. I know, well, I mean, Toy Story obviously in '95 was the first feature digital, but even backing up to '92 when Fern Gully came out, Aladdin, that started to have some digital in there. Lion King would have some digital. So yeah, it was off to the races at that point. So it's a good point. That's a good point. What was the vibe doing? I mean, you were running, I guess it was Kroyer Films at the time. I know there was Don Bluth around the same time, but what was it like being, the non-Disney camp and being like, by the way, we put out really kick-ass animated movies too, because Fern Gully was one of my childhood favorites, and I feel like when people are ranking their best movies, they only talk about the Disney stuff, and this one, we really need to hold this up. What was it like being sort of in that the
Well,
extra camp?
the weird thing was is we were like the non-Disney Disney group because
Right.
if you recall, I did Tron in '82
Yep.
and first computer animation. And what happened? Disney kind of rejected that idea of doing computers. If you remember, John Lasseter he sat in my room and watched me do Tron, and then he did the Where the Wild Things Are test, and they fired him because they didn't want to do anything with computers. So I went off into the business and I came up with this idea of my own of combining computer animation with hand-drawn animation, which Disney didn't want to do. And I started my studio, but I attracted a lot of the people that were the Disney quality artists that wanted to do something new. So when you look at the roster, and frankly, Ralph Eggleston, art director, he did Toy Story and he did Nemo and he did The
Yeah.
Incredibles. Tony Fucilli, the production, the character designer, he did all the Pixar films. So, Andrew Stanton was one of our storyboard artists. So we had a very, very high quality crew. When the Australians came to town to do this movie and they knew nothing about the Hollywood animation business, they discovered that there were no other Disney feature animation units other than Disney. So they weirdly enough found us and they said, well, you're not a feature unit, but you guys have the quality. Do you think you can gear up? And we went, well, let's see. Can we go from 17 to 170? Yeah, we can do that.
I love it. And just while we're still sort of on that train of thought, remind me, didn't you worked, what was it, as an animator on some Disney's like Fox and the Hound, which still breaks my heart if I even think about that movie. I cry immediately. But did you leave before Black Cauldron, or when did that work for
I
you?
left because of Black Cauldron.
You didn't want to work on that
Didn't want to do it. Steve Lisberger came to town with this idea to do a film called Animal Olympics. And Steve, I don't know if you've ever talked to him, but he is an amazingly charismatic guy. And Animal Olympics just looked like a load of fun. It was going to be Warner Brothers style comic animation. And he just lured me away and he made me animation director of that movie. And we had a blast. And once again, we had a crew. We had Brad Bird, we had Roger Allers, we had Dave Steffen. We had this amazing all-star crew making Animal Olympics. And then during the Animal Olympics, of course, we developed Tron, and that's how I ended up back at Disney. So
Gotcha. Well, thanks for filling those gaps, because I know Black Cauldron has a bit of a negative legacy, almost like the Disney renaissance with musicals and Little Mermaid. It's almost a reaction veering off after that, and then you're taking it off into Fern Gully. So let's bring it back to Fern Gully then. So we've talked a lot about how the animation was, a revolutionary / some of the last of its kind. But talk about like the story, the themes of with the Hexus and the loggers and the environmental themes in the rainforest. I mean, it's called The Last Rainforest, but talk about how those themes are eerily prescient too.
Well, they were, and they're kind of universally applicable, and never more so than right now. Ironically, Fern Gully was a real simple idea. It was about the web of life. It was that simple principle that even if you don't realize it, you're connected to everything and everybody. What you do affects everybody in the world. So we personalize that with this young kid named Zach, who he's just a college kid doing a summer job, has no deep thoughts about anything, and then he ends up getting involved with nature, personified by Krista the fairy, who is nature. And in doing so, much like a character in Avatar, he discovers that the natural world is one that should be protected and saved, and because we're all connected. And that was the core of it. And it's such a perfect metaphor for the reality of how what we're facing now. The fact we're seeing things go awry in the environment, and we have to realize that man, oh man, we have to be responsive to that, because we're going to all feel it.
Oh yeah, and I love you sort of stealing my questions, but I love that you dropped the Avatar reference because we all, biggest blockbuster ever, not adjusted for inflation. I always mention that, but in today's dollars, it's so huge. But the whole time I'm watching, I was like, this is Fern Gully in space. So you guys were ahead of your time. Does that make you feel proud that that same story is echoing on, and you know what I mean? You did it first.
It was pretty funny, when they started doing the mashups online of the Fern Gully Avatar trailers. It was pretty funny how close those things, how many things about the two were kind of matching. But I would never. James Cameron is a brilliant guy, and I would never accuse him of like totally ripping us off. But I do think that I have been told that his kids were watching it, so you never know.
You never know. Yeah, no, I don't want to veer down too far. He's a visionary on his own, but yeah, I'm sure it was seeping into his conscience, along with Pocahontas and a bunch of other stuff. Dance with Wolves.
We want it to seep in everybody's consciousness. That's the idea.
Well, it did. I'm telling you. I don't want to underdate myself, but I guess I was probably in about second grade when Fern Gully came out, so I was the perfect audience for this thing. And so let's go remind me let's remind everyone some of the cast on this thing, because you mentioned Zach. That was Jonathan Ward. Krista was Samantha Mathis, but I guess Tim Curry as Hexus, but a lot of people, and Christian Slater, of course. A lot of people forget that Robin Williams was he did the genie the same year in Aladdin, but a lot of people forget he was Batty Coda. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, he was Batty Coda. We got him first. It was his first animated voice, and he signed on because he loved the project and he loved the message, And of course, Batty Coda, if there's one character that symbolizes the whole point of the movie, it's Batty. He is nature basically abused by man in a character, and Robin loved that. And he just made that character come alive, and all the personality changes and everything that he did. It was really a natural thing for that character with the little wires in his head. It just became so perfect for Robin to do. And I always say the toughest thing for me on that film was picking the best Robin Williams take, because he would do like 10 improvisations and they would all be just brilliant. So you had to go, oh man, how do I pick one? So anyway.
The guy, rest in peace. The guy's brain moved faster than probably just about anybody. And famously, the stories are that Aladdin couldn't even be nominated for a script, Oscar nomination, because so much of it Robin improvised in the booth. It wasn't even the writers. So I assume it sounds like that was sort of the case here. He was just riffing a lot of it. So it was like, what do we use and what do we throw? Like his cutting room floor stuff's probably funnier than most people's written stuff. But how about the rest?
I'm sorry, I was going to say animation's all about visual storytelling, and that's what we're all about. And that's why we went to Australia. We did that, that research trip, because we wanted people to realize that the actual forest with the real plants and animals that we're talking about is as magical as any fantasy world that you could create.
Yeah.
And, that in a way was a message, that was a visual message in itself, that what you're watching here on screen is something you can actually save.
Right, exactly. And it's just cool when you're watching it, and you can, if you listen closely, you're like, that's Cheech and Chong, that's Tone Loc, that's the whole cat.
Were great. They were so much fun. There's stories, of course, you cannot tell about Cheech and Chong on radio. You can only imagine. So yeah.
Their rainforest was of the smokable kind. I'm sure different grass they were in their rainforest. What'd you say?
You can't pass up that opportunity with Cheech and Chong. I won't say anything.
You can say no more. Haze over that rainforest. But no, the other thing that pops in my mind when I think of Fern Gully, in addition to the cast and the animation, I think of that the Land of a Thousand Dances, the na 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 on the little Walkman, right? Of course, it was who was it? Was it Wilson Pickett originally? I think there was like a '90s sample cover that came out around the same time. So that song was kind of hot. But talk about that song's place in the movie.
Well, all the songs, when you're making it, our thing was never stop the story with a song. Every song has to move things forward and be appropriate. And Tim Sexton was our music supervisor, and all through that movie, like that was a cover, but some of those songs in there, like if you're going to eat somebody, Jimmy Buffett wrote that. The richest man in the music industry came into our studio and sat with us at the Moviola, and he looked at that, and I remember the only thing I said to him, I said, Jimmy, animals don't really have buffets, so maybe you should alter that lyric. And he just kind of looked at me as if to say, you realize I'm a billionaire, right? And of course he didn't change the lyric. So that song and the Walkman song were great. And I thought the Raffi song, going through the treetops and everything was so lyrical. Raffi at the time, every kid in the world loved Raffi. So again, it's unusual, it's not a Broadway musical type of musical, but the music just fits, and it's so varied. Tim Curry knocking out that, that Hex's song. The variety of music in the film is kind of amazing, kind of unique.
It really is. And I guess you got Alan Silvestri doing the score, the instrumental stuff. He was Roger had just done Roger Rabbit and Back to the Future. I guess he would do Forrest Gump a couple years after Fern Gully, like that. He was on his he was on a roll there. But man, it's just a phenomenal piece of filmmaking. And as we're talking about it and remembering everything, I'm gonna dare I say, very underrated now that we're going through all of it. I'm like, this is some of the best on every level that we're talking: the music, the animation, the cast, everything. Well, we appreciate you joining us. I know you got to jump to another one. I guess just sort of in closing, talk to our listeners that maybe they haven't watched it in a while, or maybe they've grown up and they're parents now and they have kids that haven't watched it. Why should they grab this Blu-ray and revisit the world of Fern Gully?
Well, like I say, it immerses you in a world that everybody should know about and think about, and that's the fact that the beauty of nature is a natural thing, and it's something that's worth preserving and worth protecting, and worth maybe altering your life a little bit to protect. And the other thing I'll say is, remember, this is one of the last truly hand-drawn films, and the magic of hand-drawn animation is different from CG. It just has a different magic to it because it's pure illusion. It doesn't have to exist as a model. Whatever the animators drew, they make you believe those characters are there through drawings, and that's something that's being lost in features. And Fern Gully is a fantastic example of it. So those kids who are watching computer stuff all day, watch Fern Gully, enjoy those characters, watch the acting, watch the way it works. It's just so much fun to see.
Yeah. By the way, before we run, do you think they would ever make a comeback to hand-drawn animation, or is that like the genie, no pun intended, the genie's out of the bottle because CGI is just, I guess, so easy now? But could it ever come back as a large wave, or is it more just like in spurts? We'll see it here and there.
It's the ability to do it is there. It's getting more and more difficult because the artists who know that skill are disappearing. They made Claws a couple of years ago, which was basically hand drawn, but it was so kind of overly done with CG technique that you didn't even realize it was 2D. We all hope, all of us from the old days, the old animators, we all hope it's not a lost art, because again, there is something so captivating and just kind of transformative about watching the illusion of drawing as opposed to the reality of dimensional CG. There's something wonderful to watch, and we really hope that it will come back. But until it does, we have Fern Gully.
Yeah, I'm with you. I miss it, and I'm sure it took a lot. It takes longer to do. I mean, how long did it take to actually do this? By the way,
Well, that was a miracle, and you wouldn't know it, but we did the whole film in 2 years, which is a miracle. But I'll give you one thing: is we created 16 tons of artwork, 32,000 pounds of drawings and backgrounds and paintings. 4 tons of that was cell vinyl paint. I know it's a little hard to comprehend, but
wow, that's a lot of trees.
Hundreds of thousands of drawings and tons of paint. And that was the world of hand drawing and hand painting. And again, that's something that I feel it feels different when you watch it on the movie screen. People loved handling that artwork, and I think the love comes across. I think it does. It's not pixels.
It had more of a soul. I don't know how to describe it. It sounds so esoteric, but the characters had a little bit of a soul because each of their movements were hand drawn by a human touch. So I don't know. I guess you could say that there's a human touch, a hand moving the cursor on the digital, but it's not the same. But as you say, we will always have Fern Gully. So hey, thanks for doing this. It's the 30th anniversary Blu-ray of Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest. Everyone pick it up now. Director Bill Kroyer. Hey, thanks for doing this. This was a great blast from the past.
Talking to you, and don't forget those extras. There's a lot of really fantastic extras on that new Blu-ray besides just the movie itself, so don't miss those.
Awesome, sounds good. Hey, thanks for doing this.
Okay, great to see you. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.